Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Isaac, and I'm here with my friend Bruno. This is another episode of the Puzzle Podcast. And today we're answering a very, very important question. Is every invention automatically an innovation? And some of you who might be following us on LinkedIn, you may already know our answers to this. So, Bruno, is every invention innovation? If not, why not? If yes, why?
Yes. It's kind of easy to set up with a yes/no question because we could just go with the no and end up. But
Mhm.
these conversations we are having, we are hoping they're useful to others as well. So let's go into why isn't every invention automatically an innovation? So kind of that rests at the intersection of understanding what is innovation, what is an innovative idea, what is an innovative solution, and kind of when we talk about innovations, and Isaac, you can add also your take on it. We consider innovation that's something new, novel, that creates value. When we talk about invention, we are focusing on novelty, not necessarily so much on usefulness or value creation or anything like that. We are focused on coming up with novel solutions, with novel approaches, and we might not even yet know if they're feasible approaches, if they are viable approaches. And people might think, and I'm now slightly digressing, so I'll pause after that. People might think if you say that invention isn't innovative, that means invention is bad. We should avoid invention
Yeah.
and focus purely on innovation, which is also incorrect. We have many cases in history where we came up with something completely novel that we didn't know what exactly would the use be, and then it became insanely useful decades later. And I think some of the best cases are mathematical formulas like Kolmogorov, Smirnov, etc., that were not so clear in the beginning, but today they're used in statistical analysis, they're used in inference, data science, etc. But back then, nobody could have predicted that such use cases would even be possible. So then it was an invention, but when use case was found that's able to generate even more value, that combination became innovative.
Right. I like the use case focus, the application focus. So if something has no uses, has no application, then it cannot deliver value, which means that when something has been invented, it might still not have no practical use, which means, yes, it is an invention. It does not automatically become an innovation. And the problem with this, it's a false dichotomy. Is it invention or innovation? Is it both at the same time? Which one comes first? You could also argue that an invention might become an innovation at some point, or vice versa, is that an invention is an innovation potentially, the time of which has not yet arrived. And I like the idea about the point about mathematical formulas for more pedestrian things like, I don't know, smartphones, tablet PCs that many people might be familiar with. They were there long before the iPad. They were inventions, but they did not become perceived as innovations until suddenly, oh, they can do things now, there are applications. And now you can argue, were the use cases and applications really driven by needs, or was it a created need that, oh, now you have to have an iPad, that it does enable you to do things? In the end, it doesn't matter. As long as there was value perceived in the eyes of the user, and as long as it created value for them and, of course, for the company that delivered that innovation in the end, it was an innovation. So invented a long time ago, but became an innovation by someone else way later. So I guess my answer also would be no, an invention is not automatically an innovation. It could become one at some point.
And I think so. This doesn't turn into just a linguistic or semantic exercise. Where it becomes useful in practice, this distinction is understanding jobs of functions. For
Yes.
example, R&D can be invention focused, can be innovation focused, but it's important to be clear on which one of this is it, because that will also define the kind of talent you're looking for, objectives, targets that you will be aiming for, etc. So kind of, to me, it's perfectly to say organizationally we have an R&D whose job is invention. It shouldn't be like totally random invention. So they will be looking for novel solutions within your business domain. So if you're into adhesives, they won't be inventing, I don't know, new popsicle or something like that, or new software development platform. They will be trying to come up with novel solutions, either for adhesive or adhesive related issues. But they might not necessarily be dealing with commercialization of that, looking for immediate use case. But it is also, people don't invent in vacuum. Like that meme or stereotype of insane inventor that sits in their lab and comes up with different things. That's not how it works in reality. Like people that work in organizations, that work in innovation or invention related units, they are embedded in their business. So they are, the best of them are in touch with either the users, customers, or they are their own users. So that field of coming up with new things is kind of softly defined. And that is kind of important when we start discussing these concepts, that we don't pretend that they are in a vacuum and that they're separated from reality, because they're never not. And if we want things to make practical, they have to be embedded in whatever is the work that we are doing.
You touched upon function, so we could either take this discussion towards jobs to be done and how you come up with what the ideal function should be, function analysis. There are different approaches. I would like to take it into we can talk about this also, of course, but very briefly, I think this also proves that the way that you come up with something can make it be an amazing invention or not. But what it really matters, if you're a business and if you're not just inventing for the sake of it, is whether it can deliver value. And you said we do not innovate in a vacuum. Of course we do not. And very often something which has already been invented elsewhere, applied in a different domain, will result in, it will have some novelty for that domain, and it will create, potentially, if it does create value, it will create value, which means that you have an innovation. But innovation has been copied and pasted, copied from here, pasted somewhere else. Delivers value, yes. Therefore, what was invented there is not reinvented here, but it's applied here in a different context and different conditions. And then it can become an innovation. It can be done with business models. It can be done with customer service approaches. It can be done with, I don't know, software architecture or ideas of processes. And something that we have talked about in the past a few times. Honestly, yes, there are innovation prizes. There are many innovation prizes. I wouldn't call them scams, but they're grifts. Like, oh, you get a stamp that yours is an innovative design or something. But beyond that, which is a public relations activity, PR, marketing, you don't really get so you don't get an award for developing something that is innovation from somebody else. The value is in the fact that you delivered something that has value for someone. So already the fact that you can sell it, make money with it, whether it's a business model, as I said, or a product or anything else, that is the recognition. That is the definition of that, of the fact that it's innovation. So whether you call it innovation or invention, the real question is, what function does it serve? How does it instill value in the users, the buyers, the beneficiaries' work, life cycle, however you want to define it? So do we really want to focus so much on whether something is an innovation, because it's a big word, right? Everybody wants to be some kind of innovation leader, most innovative, number one innovation. You know what? You will know. You will find it out. If they don't pay you for it, it's not an innovation. Maybe it could become an innovation at some point, but for now, it's not. There's a fetish around that language, innovation, transformation, those big words. But does it really matter?
Yeah, they're definitely more PR friendly.
Yeah, I guess so.
And I would say this also, the preferred language also depends a lot on the industry. So some industries do prefer the language of invention, while other industries prefers the language of innovation.
Yeah.
In the background, they're not the same, as we discussed for the last few minutes. Another thing that's interesting, and then we will be running out of our 10-minute promise rapidly, is it's not binary, or at least it's not perhaps as binary as our conversation might imply. So, for example, as we discussed, let's say that you take inventions that were already taken to the market. They're not novel anymore, but you recombine them in the service of your business model. It creates value for you. You're making money, therefore it's innovative. It is useful for the recipient. Now you could run into a discussion, okay, we innovated, but is our solution inventive?
Mhm.
And to me, kind of that discussion, is it really helpful? Like, who cares? Who cares? You took things that have been invented, you recombined them, you created value. That's kind of what matters. What matters more in the process, or if you want to discuss, is it inventive, is it innovative, blah, 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 is when you're deciding how to actually conduct these projects, how to run these teams, how to organize the organization around that, because the processes for traditional projects, traditional deliveries, executions aren't the same as for innovative teams. You might want to use different management principles. You might want to look for different qualities in team members, etc., etc., etc. This is where I think conversation distinction is useful, but just to have it in some sort of theoretical, it's not even theoretical, it is discussion
semantic.
for the sake of discussion.
Yeah, it's semantic, right? It's okay. It's not in first you argue what is an innovation, is it a value or not, and then you say, okay, it's an invention. So what is really an invention? What does? But no invention, or let's say I don't know many inventions that come out of absolutely nothing. So then you have true invention that comes from absolutely nothing, and the fake invention that is based on something that comes before it. It's a pseudo-philosophical discussion. And one last thing, do you not think that we are dancing around the topic that there's also a benchmark? So for example, if you have in an industry where certain things are done, for example, own experience, with Tectra Ltd, our family business, we are in an industry where things are rather slow. The way people have gotten used to communicating between customers, suppliers, and so on is through email and phone and checking. Okay, but in this industry that is slow moving, the benchmark is that some processes are very manual. Now, if I introduce a order status tracking page, an API, which I did, it's not an invention at all. It's not a big deal. It's an API where we upload and the customers can see where their order is, but it's appreciated. That differentiates me to the competition. So is differentiation linked to innovation potential? In the end, I will not talk about differentiation. So how do you stand out among the crowd? If you're allowed to go a few minutes longer, is differentiation, innovation, are they actually almost the same?
I just looked down because we did run out of time, and I think this is a perfect question for a separate 10 minutes because it touches upon strategy, positioning of the product as well, and innovation processes. So I do think this is a very promising question for another episode.
As always, the good ones, they get split among different sessions. Okay, so it's a promise. We'll have it down the road. So thank you everyone for watching and listening. Thank you, Bruno, for your time. This is the